Welcome to Back to Basics Bootcamp, Tumbler edition, where myself and two other amazing artists will be sharing weekly videos with all the best tips, tricks, and tumbler making secrets. Let's get to it. As always, we're going to start with our prepped tumbler. So I've gone ahead and sanded mine, and now we're going to paint it together. So I am using a 30-ounce fatty from the Stainless Depot, and for paint, these are from Color Shot. I'm using Let's Get Cozy, Farmer's Daughter, Aromatherapy, and Stamped Passport. And tip for Color Shot paints, make sure you shake them for a good 45 to 60 seconds so you don't get runs. Now, I'm going to apologize in advance. I go in and out of frame a lot while painting this tumbler. This one is actually one that I had filmed and painted like a couple of months ago, and it's just been sitting, but it was perfect for the vision I had for this tutorial. So at this point, I wasn't great at staying in the frame. I mean, I'm still not great now, but I was even worse a couple months ago. So I just started with Let's Get Cozy. That's that really beautiful gray, and I just kind of did the like bottom third or so of my tumbler. Now, I do find with these Color Shot paints versus Rust-Oleum that they have a lot more overspray. So I like to hold my can a little bit further away. I like to have it about 10 to 12 inches, and still at that you get some overspray. You can see there on my gray, but it's not a big deal. This is basically kind of a roadmap for our glitter, and it's just to help us get that layout right and help us kind of get a really good fade with our glitter, if that makes sense, because it's easier to cover and adjust your spray paint than it is for glitter. So I went ahead in with that Aromatherapy, and I just went right under that Stamped Passport. Now I'm going to go back in with that Stamped Passport just a little bit on that very top rim. You can see what I'm talking about here. There's a lot of overspray, but like I said, don't worry about it. Now I'm filling in the space between Aromatherapy and Let's Get Cozy with Farmer's Daughter. Now I will go over the very bottom rim for Let's Get Cozy again. Make sure you get the bottom of your tumbler. And then that's it. I'm going to go ahead and let this dry, and then we'll be ready to glitter. Now we're moving on to sparkle, and as always, my glitter is from the Glitter Guy. We're going to be using Dirty Little Secret, Wisteria Lane, Fairy Godmother, that color is beautiful, and then Tranquility. Please don't let the fact that we are going to be ombreing 4 different glitters intimidate you. I promise you it is so simple. So we're going to go ahead and start with Dirty Little Secret, and I'm going to do that right along that bottom rim. Now I'm holding my bottle of glitter about 6 to 8 inches away from my tumbler, and I'm gently tipping it. I like when I am ombreing to constantly have my tumbler moving. I find that it just helps my colors lay and almost ombre themselves. Now we're going to go in with that Wisteria Lane, and that's going over that Farmer's Daughter. And again, I'm literally just tipping and turning my cup and sprinkling my glitter on there. I always have my hand about 6 to 8 inches away from my tumbler, and I'm just kind of letting the glitter do its thing. Now we will go in here with this Fairy Godmother. That's going over the Aromatherapy, and literally the same. We're tipping, spinning, and lightly just shaking our glitter onto this tumbler. Now it's important to remember most of this tumbler is going to be covered up with vinyl, so like you don't have to have, you know, the world's best ombre. Nobody's gonna know. And then I'm doing the Tranquility on the very top rim, get a good solid coverage there. Then I'm going to, again, tilt my tumbler down as I'm turning it and just slowly sprinkle my glitter on there. And I did speed up this video, so it looks like I'm going faster than I am. But for me, I don't like to sit and watch somebody do an ombre for like 20 minutes, so I did speed it up a little bit. But anyway, now that I've done the base coat for all my glitters and I've gotten everything kind of laid out, I'm just going to go back in and do one more coat with each of my glitters, and the process is exactly the same. And I'm sorry again, I'm out of frame. I glittered this a couple months ago when I was worse at filming than I am now. But it's the same exact thing. I'm just tipping my tumbler slightly. I am constantly moving it as I am just letting my glitter sprinkle on there and kind of do its own thing. Now once I have finished glittering this, I'm going to go ahead and put it on my turner because I did apply this glitter using the epoxy method. I just put like, I don't know, 5 mLs of epoxy on this tumbler. It's pretty big. And then my glitter, I will let that epoxy cure. I will spray seal it. I will put a coat of epoxy over my glitter, and then we'll be ready to move on to vinyl. Now we're going to go ahead and measure our tumbler to get ready to cut our vinyl using our template. So it's very important that you don't measure your tumbler until after you've done your epoxy. If you measure it before, it's going to be slightly smaller and your template will be too small. Ask me how I know. But I just like to take a scrap piece of vinyl, I wrap it around my tumbler, I make a little mark with a permanent marker, and then I'm going to measure it with my ruler, and then I will do the same thing. I'm going to measure my tumbler vertically with my ruler, and then we'll go to Cricut Design Space and adjust our template. So mine, I ended up sizing 11.15 wide by 10 high, and this template is from Ellie's Crafty Co. This is an absolute work of art and was perfect for this project. This printed holographic vinyl is from the Glitter Guy. It is Galaxy Clusters in the variant B. Now you can choose whichever side you want to be like your sky. So just keep that in mind when you're cutting it. You want to choose the section of the vinyl that you like the best to be your sky. I went with this one that has just all the colors in it, but the other side where my trees were was more kind of like teals and blues, but pick whatever you want. Your craft room, your rules. The extra pieces on this one I actually did use on another tumbler, which I'm going to post on TikTok. So if you want to see that, make sure you check it out because I love getting more than one tumbler out of my vinyl. So anyhow, now we have our little wrap ready to go. I'm going to grab 2 pieces of transfer tape. I prefer a 6-inch transfer tape versus a 12. So I'm going to have to use 2 pieces, but just use whatever you have. It doesn't matter. Make sure to take off the little square around it. I forgot to do that, so let me just do that quickly. So to apply these large pieces of transfer tape, I like to fold back like an inch or so of the backing, and I just put that piece down over my vinyl and then use my vinyl squeegee to just push the transfer tape down on the rest of my vinyl. You don't have to pull in the backing. It will literally just kind of roll itself off. So for the second piece, I'm just going to trim a little bit because it was a little bit long, and then I will do the same exact thing to put my transfer tape on. Once our transfer tape is on there, pushed down really well with our vinyl squeegee, I'm just going to trim around the edges with my scissors just so I don't have extra transfer tape kind of hanging out. And now for the hardest part of this tumbler, and that is wrapping our vinyl, but I promise it's going to be easier than you think. So the first thing we want to do is line up the top of our vinyl with the top of our tumbler. Now I prefer to leave a little bit of a gap between the top of my tumbler and my vinyl so I don't get a bunch of buckling in my vinyl. I also like to leave the gap because I know I'm going to sand over it with my Dremel anyways to clean up the edge and to expose a little stainless steel for my last coat of epoxy to really grip to. But that's just a personal choice. If you like to wrap yours right up at the top rim, please go ahead and do that. So I'm going to wrap it and make sure it's on there nice and straight, and I have just this extra piece of transfer tape that I'm going to like hold one side of my vinyl down with on my tumbler, if that makes sense. As you can kind of see here, I'm just double checking my seam, making sure that I have it on nice and straight still, and once I'm happy with that, we'll go ahead and apply it. Now that my vinyl is lined up, I'm going to grab my weeding tool here and I'm going to carefully pull back about a 1/2 inch to an inch or so of this backing. And now when you're first starting with this vinyl, you want to pull nice and slowly to make sure that all your vinyl has stuck to your transfer tape. And then I'm going to take my vinyl squeegee and I'm just going to start going up and down this vinyl. You can see here vertically along my tumbler to press it onto my tumbler. Now you don't really have to pull on the backing very much. A few times it got a little bit like uneven on me and I had to pull the backing gently, but otherwise just use your vinyl squeegee to push it on. Now make sure you're going nice and slowly. There are a lot of little cut lines in your stars and then little extra pieces in your trees. You just want to make sure that those are not sticking to your transfer tape, that they are going on your tumbler. And you also want to make sure that your vinyl doesn't tear. There is one little spot where I missed on one of the stars, but you end up not even noticing it, so it's totally fine. Now you can see here I have a little bit of issues, like I got a weird little wrinkle in my, I don't know what happened here, a weird wrinkle in my transfer tape maybe, I'm not sure. But I end up grabbing my scissors and kind of trimming my transfer tape so I can continue laying on the rest of my decal, but then not messing up the vinyl so I can go back and fix it. You'll see what I'm saying in just a second here. This holographic vinyl is incredibly forgiving. I actually like it more than regular printed vinyl, so you definitely need to try it out. Now what you just saw there, I just went ahead and pulled the transfer tape from the original starting point on our tumbler. That's very important because otherwise you will lay your vinyl over the seam and it will have the transfer tape on it, so make sure that you remove that. So now here I'm going to carefully start removing my transfer tape, and this is the part here that you saw me trim where I had that weird little, I don't know what happened here, but I'm just going to kind of use my little weeding tool here and just my fingers and just kind of picking this little pieces up here and laying them on flat. Nobody's gonna know if like one of them's a little bit off or, you know, whatever. It's totally fine. Don't stress if you have a little issue like that. You can always fix it. If you end up with any little bubbles under your vinyl, take your weeding tool and gently poke them and just push the air right out. We are going to be sprinkling a chunky glitter on this, so it really will hide any imperfections that you have. But see, the vinyl wrap was much easier than you were thinking, wasn't it? Just make sure you take your time. Now, once we have this wrapped, we'll go ahead and do a coat of epoxy over our tumbler, and we'll sprinkle on some chunky glitter. Now we want to add a little pizzazz. You guys know already, if you see my tutorials, I'm going to be adding a little sprinkle of mica powder. I'm going to be using flash white, and then for my chunky sprinkle, I'm going to be using Big Spoon. So I'm going to go ahead and put, I don't know, like 20-25 mLs of epoxy on this tumbler, just a regular coat that I would typically do. Look at the holographic vinyl. This stuff is insane. So now we're going to sprinkle on our Big Spoon. So I did go ahead and torch my tumbler. It's been spinning probably about 10 minutes or so. You don't need to let it spin a bunch, but I'm literally just dipping like 3 or 4 of my fingers into that Big Spoon on my little piece of paper here. And what sticks to my fingers, I'm just sprinkling on my tumbler. And I don't really have any particular way of doing this as far as where I want it to be. I just know I don't want a bunch on my trees and I don't want a bunch on my moon. So I'm going to continue this until I'm happy with how it looks, and then I'll go ahead and let this coat of epoxy cure. Once that coat of epoxy has cured, I will sand the rim, put a coat of spray sealer on it just to make sure that chunky doesn't repel, put my final coat of epoxy on, and my tumbler will be finished. I hope you found this episode of Bootcamp helpful. If you did, I would love a thumbs up on my video. If you want to keep up with all the other Bootcamp videos, make sure to subscribe to my channel, check out LLB Creations channel and Palebird Designs channel. I'll have them both linked in the description box below. Until next time, happy crafting.